17-year-old Eli Navarro had learned a long time ago that the world didn't slow down for kids who fell through the cracks. It sped up, actually, rushing past them with indifferent headlights and the constant hiss of tires on wet pavement. On this particular November night, the city of Seattle felt colder than usual, as if the concrete itself had decided to reject him. He sat on the edge of a shuttered gas station beneath the tangled ribs of an overpass, the hum of traffic vibrating through the bones of the structure above. Trucks roared by on Route 99 like restless beasts, their engines growling into the darkness. The flickering neon sign buzzed overhead, sputtering between red and blue, casting sickly colors onto cracked asphalt stained by decades of oil and rain. Eli pulled his jacket tighter around himself. The coat had once belonged to his grandfather, too large for his narrow shoulders, the cuffs frayed, the zipper slightly crooked. It still smelled faintly of metal polish and cheap cologne, a scent that clung stubbornly to the fabric even after 3 years in rain, sweat, and cold. That smell was the closest thing Eli had left to family. Between his worn sneakers sat a backpack holding his entire life, a torn hoodie, a spare pair of socks, a notebook filled with half-written thoughts, a toothbrush salvaged from behind a fast food dumpster, and a handful of wrinkled dollar bills that had to last longer than they ever did. Hunger gnawed at his stomach with familiar persistence, a dull ache he'd learned to ignore. A minivan pulled up at the far pump. A family climbed out, parents laughing softly, kids arguing over snacks. Their voices carried easily through the night, bright and effortless. Eli turned his face away, shrinking into the shadows. He had mastered the art of becoming invisible, avoiding security guards, police officers, and well-meaning adults whose solutions always ended with paperwork and locked doors. Then he heard it. A deep, uneven rumble, low and powerful, like thunder struggling to stay contained. The motorcycle rolled into the station slowly, its chrome reflecting the neon glow like liquid fire. Eli recognized the sound immediately. His grandfather had taught him engines long before he taught him algebra. He could identify a bike by its voice alone. The rider was enormous. Broad shoulders under a weathered leather jacket, gray hair spilling from beneath a helmet scratched by thousands of miles. The machine sputtered as it reached the pump, coughed twice, and then fell silent with a tired mechanical sigh. The man slumped forward, resting his weight on the handlebars. Eli felt something twist inside his chest. He'd seen that posture before, on men sitting alone in hospital waiting rooms, on drunks outside shelters at dawn, on himself in reflective bathroom mirrors when exhaustion finally won. It was the look of someone who had run out of options. The smart move was to stay still. Keep his head down. Trouble followed kindness more often than it rewarded it. But memory has a way of overriding survival instincts. Eli stood before he could stop himself. "Bike trouble," he called out, his breath fogging in the cold air. The rider lifted his head slowly. His eyes were tired, road-worn, searching. For a brief moment, they studied Eli with caution. Then something softened. "Yeah," the man said. His voice was rough, like gravel soaked in whiskey. "Won't turn over. Been acting up all day." Eli crossed the distance between them, kneeling beside the bike as if drawn by gravity. His fingers brushed the engine casing, cold beneath his skin. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked. The rider hesitated, then shrugged. "Can't make it worse." Eli smiled faintly. He already knew the problem. As he worked, the man introduced himself as Ron Calder. He explained that he was riding south, trying to reach Sacramento by morning. His daughter was getting married. The first invitation he'd received in 5 years. The first chance he'd been given to show up instead of disappoint. "She finally called me last month," Ron said quietly, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands. "Said she wanted me there. I don't deserve it, but I don't want to miss it." Eli listened while loosening a bolt. "Carburetor's flooded," Eli said calmly. "You stalled it earlier." Ron nodded. Eli cleaned the components carefully, hands moving with confidence that surprised even him. The cold bit into his knuckles, but he ignored it. This was familiar territory, metal and grease, cause and effect. His grandfather's voice echoed in his head, guiding him through each step. "She probably thinks I won't make it," Ron muttered. "Maybe she's better off that way." Eli didn't look up. "Don't quit before you give her the chance to decide," he said. "Not trying hurts worse than failing." Ron stared at him. Those words weren't rehearsed. They came from somewhere deep, born of nights Eli had spent waiting for a mother who never came back, of apologies that never arrived. The engine roared to life moments later, loud and alive, echoing under the overpass. Ron laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound, and grabbed the handlebars. "You did it," he said. Eli stepped back, wiping his hands on his jeans. Ron reached for his wallet. Eli shook his head. "Just get there." Their eyes met for a long moment. Something unspoken passed between them, gratitude, respect, recognition. Ron mounted the bike and pulled on his helmet. "I won't forget this," he said. Then he was gone, swallowed by the night. Eli stood alone again, the smell of exhaust lingering in the air. For the first time in months, he felt warm. Morning came too quickly. Gray light crept across the station as frost clung to windows and railings. Eli hadn't slept. He sat counting coins, wondering if he could afford coffee or if hunger would win again. That's when the sound returned. Not one engine. Many. The ground vibrated. Windows rattled. A distant roar grew louder, heavier, until it felt like the sky itself was moving. Eli turned slowly. Out of the mist emerged a line of motorcycles, dozens of them, stretching down the highway in perfect formation. Chrome flashed. Leather gleamed. The air filled with thunder. Patches caught the light. Symbols Eli recognized from news headlines and whispered warnings. His heart stopped. They rolled into the station, surrounding him, not threateningly, but deliberately. Like a wall. At the front rode Ron. But this wasn't the tired man from the night before. This Ron sat tall, confident. His jacket bore insignia that spoke of rank, loyalty, and decades of respect. He removed his helmet and smiled. "Boys," Ron called out, his voice carrying authority that silenced engines one by one. "This is the kid who made sure I didn't miss my daughter's wedding." Silence followed. Then men dismounted. Large hands reached out, not to grab, but to offer. Food. Cash. Warm smiles. Words of thanks. Eli stood frozen as respect washed over him like a tide. Ron stepped forward and wrapped him in a hug that smelled of leather and oil and something strangely safe. "She asked about you," Ron said softly. "Called you an angel." He pressed a card into Eli's hand. "My shop's in Sacramento. If you want work, real work, it's yours." The engines roared again as they left. Eli stood alone in the quiet, hope heavy in his pocket. For the first time, the road ahead felt like it led somewhere. "Family." He gestured. A woman stepped forward. "A lawyer. We're filing wrongful termination. Public case. You'll never work in a cafeteria again." Maria blinked. "Why?" Kane smiled gently. "Because someone protected one of ours." The sirens faded. The city buzzed. Holbrook was gone. But justice wasn't finished yet. 2 weeks later, the city felt different. News screens lit up with headlines. CEO arrested in corruption scandal. Police captain under investigation. Holbrook's empire collapsed fast. Accounts frozen. Board members resigned. Lawsuits piled high like wreckage. Inside a quiet diner, Walter sat at a booth wearing clean clothes. His hands no longer shook. Across from him sat Kane. "They got him," Walter said softly. Kane nodded. "They always do. Eventually." Outside, motorcycles lined the curb, chrome shining in the sun. Maria walked in holding her son. She looked stronger now. Hope replaced fear. The lawyer smiled. Settlement cleared. College fund included. Full apology on record. Maria covered her mouth, crying. "Thank you." Kane stood. "You don't thank us." Walter placed a hand over his heart. "You thank each other." Later that day, the Iron Reapers gathered at a veterans' shelter. New beds. New heaters. A banner read, "Never forgotten." Kane spoke to the crowd. "This city respects money. We respect sacrifice." Applause thundered. That night, Maria tucked her son into bed. "Mom," he whispered, "are the bikers heroes?" She smiled. "Yes, they are." Across town, Holbrook sat alone in a holding cell, suit gone, power stripped. He stared at the wall, finally small. The city moved on. But a lesson remained. When greed crushes the innocent, when power forgets honor, someone always remembers. And sometimes, justice rides on two wheels.